and members of the subcommittee. My name is Curtis Leggett, and I am the President and CEO of the National Association of Broadcasters. I'm proud to testify today on behalf of our thousands of local television and radio station members who serve your constituents across the country. In today's media landscape, television and radio broadcasters' value proposition stands alone. We are the most trusted, we are the most local, we offer the most in-demand sports and entertainment programming, and we are freely available to any viewer and listener who wants to access our stations over the air. For those reasons, we remain the most popular. More than 181 million adults watch broadcast TV each month, and more than 227 million listeners tune into broadcast radio each week. Most importantly, we are lifelines in times of emergency when internet and cell networks fail. Consider the wildfires that recently ravaged the island of Maui, destroying homes, lives, and businesses, and forcing thousands of people to evacuate. For days, there was no power, no water, and no internet service. Fiber lines and cell towers burned to the ground, but broadcasting remained one of the few dependable sources of communication, providing round-the-clock updates on the fires, emergency supplies, and shelter that kept people safe. And tragically, this is not unique. Whether it's tornadoes in Ohio or flooding in California, broadcasters are there. Yet broadcasters' investment in this service, all freely available to the public, does not exist in a vacuum. We compete in a fierce media landscape that's been dramatically reshaped by changes in technology and an avalanche of content options. Today, we compete for audience, advertising dollars, and content rights with cable, satellite, podcasts, digital platforms, and most significantly, big tech. Yet despite these industry changes, broadcasters remain uniquely subject to rules governing our scale and scope from a bygone era. Unlike TV broadcasters, no rule restricts YouTube or TikTok's audience reach to 39% of U.S. households. Unlike radio broadcasters, no rule limits SiriusXM to offering only 5 channels in one local market. And our competitors have no obligations or incentive to provide the local news, weather, sports, public affairs, or emergency information that our audiences rely on. We offer a public service that our competitors do not replicate. Yet we do all this while competing with one arm tied behind our backs. To that end, more must be done to ensure fair competition and continued consumer access to our essential service. This committee should urge the FCC to immediately take 4 actions. First, the FCC should complete its 2018 quadrennial review and modernize its broadcast ownership rules to account for the rise and increasing dominance of digital media. Second, the FCC should refresh the record in its virtual MVPD proceeding to ensure it reflects the impact of streaming on viewer access to local stations. Third, the FCC should create a more transparent, fair, and predictable process to review broadcast transactions. And finally, the FCC should continue supporting the rollout of NextGen TV. These are 4 actions the FCC can take today. Additionally, this committee should focus its legislative efforts on 2 bills: the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act, which will ensure continued access to AM radio as a safety standard in automobiles, and legislation to reinstate the Diversity Tax Certificate Program, which will help broadcasters better reflect the diversity of the communities we serve. In conclusion, America's broadcasters are extremely proud of our service to your constituents. But importantly, we must acknowledge that our role is not accidental. It is a shared success between our industry and a legal framework that was created and refined by generations of this committee. While some on the witness panel may criticize elements of it, our blend of local and national programming that is uniquely tailored to every community across the country is one of the true success stories in a century of telecommunications law. As a result, our free and local broadcast system remains the envy of the world. Thank you again for the opportunity to appear before you today. I look forward to your questions.
Well, thank you for your testimony. And Mr. Spellmeyer, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you for the opportunity to testify today on these very timely issues. Aside from Congressman Pallone, no member of this committee was in Congress 31 years ago when it enacted the 1992 Cable Act. Looking back, no one could have accurately predicted the tremendous changes that would follow from that law. The law resulted in content providers gaining disproportionate leverage over smaller cable providers and their subscribers. ACA Connects was formed in 1993 after passage to give small and rural cable operators a seat at the table in Washington. Since then, ACA has been engaged on every major legislative and regulatory decision affecting the video marketplace. We appreciate the seat at this table today. Fast forward to 2023, we have over 500 members who together serve all 50 states. 30 years ago, cable television was my members' core business. By 2019, that was no longer true. The marketplace had evolved so dramatically that we changed our name from the American Cable Association to America's Communications Association, ACA Connects, to emphasize our members' growing focus on broadband delivery platforms. The shift away from video programming is fundamentally driven by the ever-rising cost of programming, especially sports content. You need look no further than Exhibits A and B to my testimony, written testimony, to understand the history of the price increases that we've experienced. But don't let me leave you with the impression that there is no good news, however. Consumers have access to tons of content. ACA Connects members are delivering that content to their consumers over world-class broadband infrastructure that empowers consumer choice. If we as a country are to collectively seize this moment for the benefit of consumers, we must ensure that the rules operate fairly and rationally without anyone having the ability to exert undue leverage. Otherwise, we face a reckoning. Looking forward, there are three main issues that are worth your attention here in Congress today. First, just as we have seen the disruption to local newspapers and other media driven by changing habits and technologies, the video business has changed forever. I can tell you that some of my members, both large and small, have exited the video business already. I can tell you that all of them are seriously considering the possibility of doing that in the future. Since cable customers have largely funded the content explosion, the fallout of this coming change is going to be profound for everyone, including providers, programmers, and local broadcasters. How Congress chooses to impact the pace of change is of paramount importance to everyone. Second, a constant theme is that market size and market power casts a massive influence over innovation and pricing. We encourage you to look at existing programs, rules, and laws with an eye towards trying to make sure that no player can assert undue leverage, resulting in harm to competition or consumers. The same is true for many telecom policies under consideration before this committee. Take net neutrality, for example. All the evidence points to a healthy and functioning dynamic marketplace where broadband providers make it possible for their subscribers to choose content sources. I cannot leave this table today without urging you to consider the risks of revisiting Title II rate regulation. If anything, just as we have seen in the video marketplace, policymakers need to consider the impact on smaller providers who lack leverage over online giants. Failure to do so could destabilize the ecosystem, especially in the rural markets we serve. Third and finally, while the transition to internet-delivered services and content is well underway, many consumers today are still impacted every day by factors such as the rates, terms, and conditions for linear programming. The antiquated retransmission consent framework continues to leave customers suffering under a regime of inflated prices, blackouts, and without the ability to choose content packages that best suit their needs. We must fix it and avoid future mistakes. We hope that you will keep these dynamics in mind and the lessons of history in mind as we tackle these issues going forward. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Mr. Gandler, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, Chairman Latta, Ranking Member Matsui, and distinguished members of the subcommittee. Thank you for inviting me to testify before you today. My name is David Gandler, and I'm the co-founder and chief executive officer of Fubo. I've been in the media industry for nearly 25 years in various roles, including at local broadcast and cable TV companies in both the general and Hispanic markets. I co-founded Fubo in 2015 for two reasons. I wanted to help consumers access content that was difficult for them to find, and two, I believed that the media landscape was transitioning to streaming, and so it did. Today, consumers have freedom when deciding how to access content. With the rise of streaming, the video content marketplace has become increasingly diverse and competitive. From traditional cable to satellite to a variety of streaming services, accessing news, entertainment, and sports content is easier than ever, and prices are very competitive. Cable, fiber, and satellite television companies like Comcast and DirecTV continue to offer content to consumers. However, with streaming services, consumers can access content on their computers, televisions, and mobile devices. These streaming services provide content in various formats. Services like Amazon Prime Video, Disney Plus, or Netflix allow consumers to stream selections from a library of content. These services typically offer content on demand, pre-recorded video for users to watch at their leisure with limited or no live content. Services like Fubo, YouTube TV, and Hulu Plus Live TV are similar to traditional cable, satellite, and fiber companies in the content that they offer. But they are very different in every other aspect. These services aggregate hundreds of broadcast television stations, but deliver them to consumers over the internet. They offer both live and video on-demand content. Notably, the live TV content streamed from such providers includes access to almost every local station in America. For example, Fubo subscribers can stream approximately 99% of local stations across the country. Further, live TV streamers like Fubo can be a cheaper consumer alternative. We do not require and therefore do not charge consumers for cable or satellite boxes. Also, consumers do not have to agree to long-term contracts as they may be required to do with cable. All of these benefits for consumers, including the broad optionality and accessibility of local content, are possible because companies like Fubo do not face regulation that undermine our ability to prioritize consumer preferences and to innovate. Applying decades-old regulations to streaming platforms is the epitome of a solution in search of a problem. Unfortunately, large station groups are pushing the FCC for rule changes that would ultimately increase costs for consumers. These groups are pushing to force streaming platforms to negotiate with them directly for content that they do not own. They seek to revive a long-dormant proceeding that provoked an overwhelmingly negative response during a public consultation. Commenters pointed to the potential harm to viewers, content creators, and local news providers. The protracted Nexstar and DirecTV dispute is a recent example. Nexstar has pulled its content from DirecTV for several months now. Blackouts such as this cause massive disruption for consumers who are not able to watch the must-have programming, including pro football games like this past weekend. Consumers undoubtedly benefit from our subscription model. Our subscribers receive a Fubo channel plan that's right for them, with applicable local news, weather, and sports content, as well as national networks. However, it would simply not be possible for us to provide this content to consumers if regulations required that we negotiate with each local station. The time and people necessary to complete such negotiations would allow us only to focus on major media markets, leaving many local communities behind. This would be a profoundly detrimental change to the current system where virtually anyone in the United States with broadband access can sign up for Fubo and access their local content. Also, it's highly unlikely that Fubo and other streaming companies will be treated fairly in any such negotiations, and ultimately, again, the consumer will be adversely impacted. We know consumers want the technological innovation, content selection, and competition created by the current system because we see that in the rate of customers canceling their traditional pay TV services, otherwise known as cord cutting, has continued to accelerate in the United States. Thank you for the opportunity to appear at this hearing today, and I am, of course, happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
And thank you very much for your testimony. Mr. Swantes, you're recognized for 5 minutes for your opening statement.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Latta, Ranking Member Matsui, and members of the subcommittee. And thank you for inviting me to testify on the current state of the video marketplace. My name is John Schwantes, and I'm a Senior Policy Counsel at Consumer Reports. Today, we will no doubt hear that the video marketplace has been dramatically disrupted, with the pace of change accelerating in just the past 2 or 3 years. On this point, many of us will agree. Traditional cable and satellite TV companies have lost millions of customers, specifically more than 25 million in just the past 5 years. On the other hand, streaming services, a novelty a decade ago, have signed up millions of subscribers. Netflix alone counts 75.5 million U.S. subscribers. And today, some streaming services provide live television, equivalent to what a traditional cable company offers. Importantly, free over-the-air local broadcasting still exists, but many younger consumers have no memory that television once meant receiving 3 or 4 local broadcast channels with an antenna just 40 or 50 years ago. Speaking for myself, I do remember. To put this in perspective, last year in July, for the very first time, as Chairman Latta pointed out, streaming services drew more viewers than cable TV. They snagged a nearly 35% share of total TV consumption in the country. Streaming stretched its lead to nearly 39% this past summer. So what's going on here? First, it's important to understand that how consumers view content is as important as how they receive content. With the introduction of the iPhone and other smartphones in 2007, the rapid proliferation of screens began, allowing consumers to watch video content whenever they wanted, wherever they wanted. But none of these changes would have been possible without the availability of an affordable, fast, and reliable broadband connection, which is necessary to stream video. Aided with the arrival of mobile screens and sufficient computing power, the internet was set to revolutionize the video marketplace, much like it had the newspaper and music industries earlier in the decade. These changes created a market shift away from watching television at a set time, so-called linear programming, and empowered consumers to watch content on their own schedule. This democratization of viewer choice started to chip away at the long dominant business model of cable television, significantly altered consumer behavior, and fueled the changes we will be discussing here today. On balance, these changes have benefited consumers in numerous ways. Competition and more consumer choice for video programming is a good thing, and there are more choices for video content and more ways to access that content than ever before. Consumer behavior bears this out. According to a nationally representative Consumer Reports survey conducted earlier this year, roughly half of American households say they subscribe to 4 or more streaming services, and almost 1 in 10 subscribe to 9 or more. Furthermore, most streaming applications allow consumers to easily cancel any time during a given month, meaning consumers are only obligated to pay for 1 month in which they can view as much content as they like and during that time and then cancel. As for the equipment required for video streaming, all a consumer needs is a device that can either host streaming applications like a smartphone or many TVs sold today, or a device that connects to a TV to host these applications, many of which are less than $50. This is a stark departure from having to rent a set-top box from a cable or satellite company. But it's not all good news. Subscribing to multiple streaming platforms can also be expensive. In this respect, the many choices offered by streaming require consumers to be more conscious of their purchasing decisions in real time and cognizant of how much they are spending across the many streaming apps they are subscribing to each month. Moreover, many streaming services have raised their prices recently. Of course, price increases are nothing new for cable TV subscribers. But perhaps the biggest harm facing consumers in the video marketplace is the prevalence of blackouts, which happen when an agreement isn't reached between a content provider and a video distributor. Blackouts are both disturbing and anti-consumer, with an estimated 1,000 of them having occurred since 2010. To be crystal clear, these disputes are all about money and universally harm consumers. The recent dispute between Disney and Charter serves as Exhibit A for understanding this problem. Because 2 multi-billion-dollar companies could not come to an agreement on a price for carrying Disney's content, 15 million Charter Spectrum cable subscribers were denied ABC, ESPN, and other channels owned by Disney for more than a week. The problem of blackouts and other challenges facing the video marketplace can and should be addressed by Congress in a way that would better benefit consumers. Policymakers would be wise to assess what is working, what is not, what we value in a healthy video marketplace, and then act to level the playing field for all video providers in a way to best serve consumers. I outlined some of these ideas in my written testimony and would be happy to discuss them further. With that, I look forward to answering any questions you may have.